Well, hello everyone, and welcome to my NC Miata buyer's guide video. I know this is probably not the video that you were expecting, and it's not the video I was expecting to do, but I had all the material ready, and it's been a while since I posted anything, especially a full-length video like this, rather than a YouTube short or an Insta reel. And it's been a few weeks since I did any content, but I'm back from my winter break, so I figured I might as well get something done because it's been a while and I had the content readily available. So this video is going to be my NC Miata buyer's guide. I have what we're going to do in this video. What I'm going to show you is some MotorWeek videos reviewing every single sub-generation of the NC1, the NC2, the NC3. And then we're going to go over some listings on various websites like Facebook Marketplace and AutoTempest. I may do Bring a Trailer and Cars and Bids if I have the time to do it, but those aren't those might not necessarily be the best sites to do it, but we'll see. So before I get started, one thing I want to point out, or rather this is a disclaimer, and I think I may have referred to it in my NB reaction video, and that is that the NC is the generation of Miata that I know probably the least about. I'm fairly knowledgeable about it simply because I know about Miatas, I love Miatas and whatnot, but I've never personally owned an NC, just like I've never owned an NB, and the NC is the generation I have the least driving time with, and the least experience with just overall dealing with as a car enthusiast. So, but I do know people who own NCs. I'm not completely clueless on them, and I want to provide a buyer's guide for each generation. So after this one's done, well, the last one that's going to be left is the ND, and I know quite a lot about the ND. So that's a video I can't wait to make, although you'll probably have to wait because I want to make sure all the content for that one is good. But enough rambling. So we're going to talk about the NC Miata in this video, and you can see one pictured in the background here. The white Miata that's behind these two NAs that I talked about is an NC Club, if I remember correctly. And it's an NC3 Club. That means it's the third sub-generation or the second facelift of the NC. And it's a special edition in a way that, or special trim level, because it has that power retractable hardtop that you see in the back. So it makes a two-tone where you have like white on the body and then black for the power retractable hardtop. So that's just something I wanted to point out. But let's go ahead and get into the first videos. And once again, we're gonna watch MotorWeek, which is kind of like not really a documentary, but a weekly PBS show that they've done since 1981 about various cars and the whole, car market and whatnot. It's basically television's original automotive magazine. So once again, let's see, here's John Davis. I'm going to adjust my screen a little bit here so that way I have the right angle. And then here we go. This video came out in 2006. So it's when the NC came out. That was the first model year. I think the NC actually started selling or started production in 2005, right after Mazda rebuilt from the fire at the factory that they had, which kind of cut the NB generation, especially the Mazda speeds, off a little bit early. So they already had the NC design ready to go from concept designs several years prior, but 2006 was the first model year, at least in the United States. So this is going to cover the NC1, which was 2006 to model year 2008.
In 1990, Mazda started a roadster revival with the introduction of the MX-5 Miata, a compact and very affordable drop top that became one of the most popular sports cars ever built. But even the best design shows its age eventually, and Mazda has now introduced an all-new MX-5 for 2006. So let's see if it has what it takes to fire us up all over again. Before we start, let's talk about the name of this tidy rear-drive roadster, the 2006 Mazda MX-5. Miata has been officially dropped. You won't find it anywhere on the car. But because it is so well known, it will still be used in advertising and promotion. Go figure.
That's something I want to point out, is that Mazda, at least in the United States, dropped the Miata name from the official name of the car. Supposedly that had to do with a settlement with the Miata bicycle company, I think it was, in Japan. And they only really used the Miata name in the United States as a marketing as a marketing gimmick, because US car buyers, they like names rather than model numbers or designations that are associated with a car, unless you step up into like luxury levels. So Miata was the name that they gave it for the United States. And even though it's officially the MX-5, and it always has been, even here, people in the United States will always call it the Miata, even the current generation.
Narrowly, this third generation and only second total redesign, MX-5, might deserve a name change since every part is new. Yet they combine into the same minimalist sports car theme that we all...
When they say every part is new, they said it's it's the second total redesign, meaning they've redesigned it once already. That's when they went from the NA to the NB. But really and truly, it is the NC Miata marks the very first re-engineering of the whole car, because the NA and the NB are kind of like a continuous line. They use the same or basically similar engines, the similar layouts for everything, and a lot of parts are totally interchangeable between the NA and the NB and the different sub-generations of it. The NB was largely a redesign, which is a step up above a facelift from the NA, but the NC is when they totally scrapped everything and went back to the drawing board, and it's just a totally different car than the NA or the NB. It's still a Miata, but the NC is a true like re-engineering of the car from the ground up. Although if you've worked on NAs or NBs, NCs should be fairly easy to work on. They're very familiar as far as like the layout goes and what you expect from a Miata.
Fell in love with 16 years ago. The MX-5 did grow a bit, but just a bit. It's 2 inches longer, 1.6 inches wider, with 2.5 inches more wheelbase. This allowed designers to pin a much more muscular stance with only a small weight gain.
Small weight gain. Yeah, so when the NC came out, as all of you know, and this is definitely the common view here, and it's probably common globally, like NC is known as like the boat, aye captain. So there's a joke within the Miata community that if you drive an NC, you're piloting, you're a captain of a boat, because it's the fat Miata, as people say. But the NC's got, I mean, the NC is, if you compare it to any other car, even any other like sports car or small car, NCs are small. They just look big compared to other Miatas. And honestly, they are not that much bigger than the NA or the NB or the ND. In fact, the ND is actually a little bit wider, even though it's overall smaller and weighs less. The NC is the heaviest Miata of the 4 generations. They're almost, and I think some trims do crack 2,500 pounds, whereas the NA and the NB and the ND are all between, I think, 2,100 and I think like 2,350 or 24 or something like that. So there is a trick to making the NC look really good, because from the factory they look bigger than they actually are. And I'll go over that maybe later in this video.
That huskier look comes from prominent fenders, which house 16 or 17-inch alloy wheels. The nose wears a rounded grille that recalls the original 1990 Miata, but now HID headlights are an option, and there is a new subtle power bulge in the aluminum hood. A revised double wishbone front and new multi-link rear suspension provides the support.
The multi-link rear, by the way, was one of the major redesigns from the NC, and I think it was the first gen to have that. All NAs and NBs have double wishbone at all four wheels.
The MX-5 has never been known as a powerhouse, but the 2006 edition gets a 28 horsepower boost. The 2-liter dual overhead cam 4-cylinder makes 170 horsepower and 140 pound-feet of torque, up 15. Both 5- and 6-speed manual transmissions remain from '05, but new for '06 is a 6-speed automatic with steering wheel paddle shifters. With its revised internals, the 6-speed manual on our car required a firm hand, but rewards it with positive engagement as it snicks into every gear. And it allows every bit of power to reach the rear wheels, resulting in a 0 to 60 time of 7.3 seconds. The quarter mile takes 15.6 seconds at 89 miles per hour. But handling has always been the MX-5's true forte, and that has certainly not changed. Turn-in is motorcycle quick, with the rack and pinion steering requiring minimal input and allowing easy mid-corner corrections. With or without our Grand Touring model stiffer sports suspension, the chassis is tight and lively with tons of feel, plenty of grip, and just a touch of mid-corner understeer. Turn off the optional stability control and enjoy smooth tail-end slides. It's only when the front suspension unloads over big mid-corner bumps that it loses some composure. Otherwise, it's every bit the smart handling roller skate as its predecessor. Braking is also upgraded with bigger ABS-equipped discs all around. They stop the MX-5 from 60 in only 116 feet, with a pedal that's a little soft but offers great feedback. You could never call the MX-5 plush, but the new car soaks up bigger bumps and sends less tire and suspension noise to the cabin.
This is something that what he just pointed out, what John Davis just pointed out, is very important to note about the NC. When you drive an NC or an ND, it's not the fact that they're newer cars. It's just that since Mazda had been making the Miata for at least 15 years at this point, closing on 20, they are much better engineered, better designed cars from a handling and even from a comfort standpoint than the NA or the NB. NAs and NBs are going to feel like, you know, unless you put reinforcements on them like roll bars or roll cages, they feel like noodles compared to the NC or the ND, especially if you get the hardtop variants of the NC or the ND. And that's something else I wanted to point out. Maybe not in this video, but definitely in one of the next two MotorWeek videos that we'll watch. Because, by the way, when 2006 rolled around, the very first model year, I don't think they offered the hardtop from the factory. You had to wait for, I think, '07 or '08 before you could option a power retractable hardtop.
Which opens up to the sun by way of an improved manual soft top with a single point latch. And once you flip it down, it locks into place without a button.
What that driver just demonstrated is one of the huge advantages of the NC or the ND. It is so much easier to put the top back or to put the top back up. It's just a single latch that you undo from the center of the windshield, and then it just pops back into place like that. With the NA or the NB, as you've seen in my previous videos, there are two latches, one at each corner, and it's not necessarily a pain to get them undone, but compared to how easy it is with the NC and the ND, and the NC and the ND use the same top mechanism, by the way. They don't use the same top, but they have the same mechanisms. That's very important to note. They are so much easier to operate as far as the top goes than the NA and the NB.
Bothersome boot. Most of the MX-5's growth went into the cockpit area, where it's noticeably wider with 3.5 inches more shoulder room.
And I feel the NC, when they did the interior redesign of the NC, they harkened back to the NA rather than the NB. You notice compared to like the 1.6 NA, the NC interior looks very similar with this. If you can see my mouse cursor, this panel here on the dash. It doesn't look like the NBs or the 1.8 NAs. The airbag is completely integrated underneath the dash here. It's not an afterthought. And also, like, most people don't notice this or call it like this on the NC, but I like to. NCs also have a tombstone, as you can see here, just like the NA has. And this piece I think is removable. But yeah, it harkens back to the interior design of the original NA. And so does everything else. Notice, by the way, on the NC, they brought back the chrome rings around all the gauges. They cheapened out and they removed those about midway through the 1995 model year of the NA. And I don't think they ever came back on the NB except for maybe like special editions, if I remember correctly. But all NCs have these chrome rings. So they finally came back to that.
Minimal increases in head and legroom, however, mean that it's still tight for those over 6 foot. Side impact airbags are a welcome standard. Now, we don't much care for the wide, glossy trim strip on the instrument panel, but are quite pleased with the otherwise clean, efficient control layout. The new seats are also wider with better support in both back and bottom cushions. Trunk space has grown slightly to a usable 5.3 cubic feet. There's still little room for a spare tire.
You can tell with the trunk and the seats where they're going with the ND. This is completely different from the NA and the NB. Total redesign, and I would say it's arguably better. The NC and the ND, by the way, as far as trunk space goes, compared to the NA and the NB, the major difference is that the NA and the NB trunk are maybe a little bit larger, and the opening is a little bit wider, but they're not quite as deep as the NC and the ND trunk. So you can't fit as large a luggage piece in the NC and the ND compared to the NA and the NB, but you can fit more luggage if you break it down into smaller pieces.
So you get a bottle of repair foam and an air compressor. Run flat tires are an option worth thinking about.
No more spare tire. Haha.
The trunk may be larger, but prices are more flexible. The line now runs from the stripped down $20,995 club spec model to the limited model for $27,260. So there's an MX-5 for almost every budget. It's been 16 years since the MX-5 started a roadster revival. And with the 2006 Mazda MX-5, it becomes a sports car movement that will continue to thrive as long as there are any real auto enthusiasts left. Well, I hope you'll join us next week for more MotorWeek, when we'll test Toyota's all-new RAV4 and Porsche's exhilarating
Okay, that was the NC1. And by the way, I'm probably one of the few people, I like the catfish look on the NC1. It makes it, like, as John Davis was saying, it looks a little bit more like the original NA. There's a mod that's popular, I think, in China or Taiwan or Asia, like in Southeast Asian countries. I think Carbon Miata sells a kit where you can actually add, I think, NA pop-up headlights or FDRX7 pop-up headlights to the NC. And let me see if I can find a picture of that, because it's curious. Like, somebody did it. Oh well, I can't find it. I'll look for it later. But I've retweeted it or reposted it on Instagram and my Twitter account. So do a little bit of sleuthing and you'll be able to find it. So let's go to the NC2 video. The NC2 got a little bit of a facelift and a little bit of a power bump from the NC1, and they modified a few things with the engine and the internals, but the changes weren't, I would say the changes weren't nearly as drastic as between, like, even the NA 1.6 and the 1.8, or the NB1 and the NB2. Largely cosmetics. So With that said, here's MotorWeek's video or review of the NC2, which was model year 2009 to 2012. And by the way, if I do wind up ever getting an NC, I'll have to look for an NC2 variant because number one, I want the power retractable hardtop, of course. But number two, the NC2 is the sub-generation I want, number one. And also, I want one in Stormy Blue Mica to match my 96 M edition. And I need to find one with either a white or a tan interior. And you can really only get that with the NC2. It's hard to find with the NC1, but the NC2 is where like that particular color combo is most common.
Your host for MotorWeek, John Davis.
Well, hello and welcome again to MotorWeek. We're glad to have you with us. A classic roadster by any other name just wouldn't be the same. So let's celebrate 20 years of the Mazda MX-5 Miata. And though they've dropped the Miata tag from its nameplate, this little two-seater remains unmistakably recognizable. And now, with tweaks here and there, this drop top is ready to run the rat race once more. But after 2 decades, will the MX-5 still make buyers run to dealer lots? Yes, its official name is the Mazda MX-5, but the name Miata is still used universally by company officials, salespeople, and car enthusiasts alike. It really doesn't matter what you call it. For 2009, Mazda's little roadster still has the same fun-loving rear-drive personality it has always had. Redesigned back in 2006, the MX-5 returns this year with a few minor revisions and, of course, its choice of cloth or retractable hardtops. Our tester's hardtop remains easy to operate with the release of the header latch and a quick flick of a switch. The 3-piece roof folds and stacks under a hard tonneau cover in about 12 seconds. Even better is the hardtop adds only about 80 pounds to the curb weight over the soft top. In terms of styling,
I want to go back to this because the hardtop on the NC is when you have it from the factory like this and it retracts back into the body of the car itself. This was a new innovation from Mazda, and it looks so slick. Some people like how the ND's RF variant, it has a power retractable hardtop as well, but they call it the RF, which RF stands for retractable fastback. So you still have the pillars there that kind of act or look like a target top. With the NC though, it looks like a true convertible when the top folds back. It's clean. There's no buttresses that you have with the ND. NAs and NBs, they didn't have this option. They had a removable hardtop, which I have on my NA if you've seen some of my videos. But this is a much better way to go. And if I ever get an NC, I'm gonna get a power retractable hardtop variant like this. I think in the first couple of model years, you could option a removable hardtop from the factory from Mazda because on the soft top NCs there are provisions for the Frankenstein bolts in the back, and those are 2 points, connection points or anchor points for the hardtop. And NC hardtops, if they're removable, they look pretty good, but this is actually the better way to go, and it's the more common way. And this is how I would option an NC. Plus, with the power retractable hardtop, you don't really have to worry about replacing the top. You don't have to worry about leaks or anything like that. So let's continue on.
Top. In terms of styling, the familiar MX-5 shape continues, but it does include a more expressive front end, complete with an exaggerated version of Mazda's smiling grille theme. Fortunately, the car's slick, toy-like proportions are well preserved, and its sporty back end, complete with dual exhaust, is refreshed with tweaked taillights. As before, a good portion of this car's fun factor resides under its aluminum hood, meaning the same 2-liter twin-cam 4 as the previous MX-5. Output is 167 horsepower, an increase of 1, and 140 pound-feet of torque. This engine ties to a 5-speed manual, our tester's 6-speed manual, or a 6-speed automatic with paddle shifters. On the track, our MX-5 recorded a spirited 0 to 60 of just 6.8 seconds and finished the quarter mile in 15.
I think that's about half a second faster than the NC1. It did get a slight tweaking of the engine, which boosted power a little, if I remember correctly.
2 seconds at 93 miles per hour. Its stick shift is the blueprint of how a manual should feel. Snicky and quick through its tightly spaced gears, and the engine revs in a hurry with a sweet Euro tuner sound. The fun factor rises even more when you turn the wheel, especially with the optional Bilstein sport suspension and limited slip differential. The MX-5 is super stable, offers gobs of lateral grip, and provides more feedback than one knows what to do with. It's incredibly nimble, yet feels solid as a rock, and the steering is both well-weighted and surgically precise. Overall, the MX-5 performs on a level that's comparable to roadsters with far higher price tags. And despite its spot-on track agility, it's neither too harsh nor too stiff on normal roads, and wind noise is moderate thanks to the standard mesh wind blocker. The MX-5's brakes have always been top-notch, and we didn't see any way for Mazda to improve on them. Four-wheel disc with ABS stopped us from 60 in a short 122 feet with a solid fade-free manner. Inside, the MX-5 exudes the...
I think if you notice, compared to the 2006 one, it was a few feet slower. I'm wondering if that's because of the extra weight from the hardtop.
No-nonsense sports car cockpit that fans just can't get enough of. Motorcycle-style gauges and...
So one thing that they did with the facelift of the NC2 compared to the NC1 is, like, these gauge sizes are the same, but the font on the actual readings right here on the speedometer and the tachometer, like the numbers and the tick marks are much bigger and much easier to read.
Faux aluminum trim are Miata trademarks. Fit and finish is good, and the instrument panel remains fairly simple. Seats are just wide enough, firm and well bolstered, perfect for holding occupants in place. Our up-level Grand Touring trim had standard leather and seat heat. The car is commanded with a beefy 3-spoke sports steering wheel. For tunes, our test car came equipped with a Bose 7-speaker audio system. And safety comes from front and side airbags plus roll bars. Unlike most hardtop convertibles, the MX-5 does not compromise trunk space when the top is lowered. The cargo hold remains a small 5.3 cubic feet regardless of the roof's position. Fuel economy for the MX-5 has improved slightly. Government fuel economy ratings for the 6-speed manual are 21 city, 28 highway on premium gas. We managed 26.9 miles per gallon in real-world driving. Our MX-5's energy impact score is 14.3 barrels of oil consumed per year. Its carbon footprint measures a modest 7.7 annual tons of CO2 emitted. As for value, you won't find a more bang-for-your-buck roadster than the Mazda MX-5. It starts at $22,500 for the base SV with soft top. However, up-level trims with hardtop and loaded with options will easily push the sticker into the low 30s. So, after 20 years of carrying the Roadster Revival torch, the 2009 Mazda MX-5 remains one of the sportiest and most fun-loving two-seat convertibles out there. Changes this time around have been subtle and smart. For that reason, the Miata's loyal following has remained very much intact, and we think the MX-5 still has its best years to come.
Oh yeah. And now we're going to go over the NC3. There's not much to talk about as far as differences go. They did a bit of a facelift on the front end, but NC2 and NC3s are largely, it's pretty much the same vehicle. And most of the parts are going to be interchangeable. It's really the NC1 that's different among the three sub-generations.
Since its debut for 1990, the affordable Mazda MX-5 Miata has been one of the most fun to drive sports cars available at any price. And while many Roadster imitators have tried, like the MR2 Spider, S2000, Solstice, and Sky, none has been able.
And that's something to point out about how, like, Mazda got it right and stuck to the formula. Every competitor that's come along in the same price range or even above that price range, unless you want to get into, like, you know, the Porsche 911s, which are kind of, I mean, there's an overlap there to some extent, but with their price range and everything, it's not really the same market. I mean, all of the Miata's real competitors are pretty much gone. They last for a few years and then they go away. People say the ND's competitor is the GR86 and the Toyobaru twins, the GR86 and the BRZ. I don't think so. I think they're only a competitor in the sense that it's a front engine rear wheel drive car. And that's really it. But they're coupes. They're much bigger. They're not roadsters. So all the competitors that John Davis just mentioned, they were competitors to the Miata, and they just didn't last long for reasons.
Able to duplicate the Miata's success. Well, if you haven't heard, there's an all-new Miata on the horizon, being co-developed with Alfa Romeo. So before we move on, we wanted one more fling with a dear old friend.
So just to clarify, since I didn't mention, the NC3 is model years 2013 to 2015, the last 3 model years of the NC. The NC had a 10-year long run from 06 to 15, and then in 2016, that's when the ND came out. And assuming that we're in 2026 now, assuming that the Mazda surprises us and suddenly comes out with the NE or whatever they want to generate, whatever they want to designate the next generation, which I don't think is going to happen. Like, it's going to be a couple more years, but we're still with the ND, and the ND is going to outlast the NC as far as its longevity goes, 11 model years and counting.
More than any other car, with the possible exception of the Porsche Boxster, the Mazda MX-5 Miata has always felt like a car you wear more than drive.
Very
and while
true.
we can't predict whether that ready-to-wear style will remain in vogue come the next generation, it still holds true for the 2013 Mazda MX-5.
Okay, so this is, and he'll probably go over this right after I comment on this. What changed with the NC3 versus the NC2, and the main difference between them and how you can tell, is the front fascia here. This is slightly differently shaped and it's not chrome lined. Okay, the grille here. But the easiest way to tell are these fog lights here, or the day runners, whatever you want to call them. On the NC2, they blend in with the original shape of the front bumper cover. So they're kind of like diamond shaped as opposed to square shaped. Like the outline is kind of like what I'm doing with my my cursor here. But the NC3, they kind of squared it off, so they actually stick out a little bit from the front bumper cover. And I believe if you look on the corner here on the sides, this is where they put the this is where they put the side markers or the reflectors, which are required here in the U.S.
Tidy two-seat drop top remains one of the sweetest cars we've ever driven. Some of our newer staffers who haven't had the pleasure of driving a Miata were instant believers. And for those of us that have driven plenty of MX-5s around the block, not to mention owned a few, climbing inside this one felt right at home. The snug confines that we remember are still there, with both gear shift and steering wheel right where you want them to be. And it's a good thing, as the steering wheel still only tilts for adjustment. The MX-5 is not a car that you have to drive fast to get great enjoyment out of. This is also a good thing, as there's only adequate power coming from the MZR 2-liter i4, which oddly enough recommends premium fuel to produce its 187 horsepower, accompanied by a meager 140 pound-feet of torque. Getting reacquainted on our favorite back roads, we found this latest MX-5 to feel a little more refined. But that's okay, as we realize some things have to change. And though it has lost a little of its back-to-basics feel of the original, with things like an optional power folding hardtop, the quirky window switches and the hidden fuel release are reminders that you are in a unique vehicle. Taking in a few more curves had us pondering why Mazda even feels the need to redo it for 2014, as it doesn't really need it. I guess new competition from the Subaru BRZ and Scion FRS is a concern. The MX-5 has always been about dropping the top, both hard and soft, and getting out into the elements. And we were so eager to do just that, we didn't even wait for warm weather. Fortunately, our car came equipped with Bridgestone Blizzaks. And while they didn't grip as well through the cones at our track, they had no effect on the MX-5's razor-sharp steering with dead-on turn-ins. The tires didn't seem to help acceleration efforts either. Never a straight-line rocket, the MX-5 does snap off the line sprightly. But here it took us a full 8 seconds to climb to 60, over a second slower than the last Miata we tested. The quarter mile was also slower, taking 16.2 seconds to trip the lights at 89 miles per hour.
I think that's driver error, if you want to call it that, or driver variance. They're largely the same spec, the NC2 and the NC3. So I don't know what they're going on about. Oh, something I wanted to point out here, the way you tell an NC Miata from a distance from the other generations, the easiest way to tell is NC Miatas have these, I'll point it on the passenger side here. This is this wheel arch here, this fender bulge. If you see that on all four corners, you're looking at an NC. NDs don't have this. NDs, what they did is they made the entire fender kind of a wheel arch rather than just a bulge here. So, and you can tell this is the same variant that was in that first picture I saw, or I showed you here, like in the background, except that this one is red instead of white. That's the only difference, but it's the same trim.
For this last go-around for the current gen.
Oh, and one thing I wanted to point out that I mentioned at the beginning of the video, the way you make an NC Miata look much better and less fat, if you want to call it that, is lower it. I don't mean like slam it to the ground or anything like that, but NC Miatas come high from the factory. Like, look, that's like 2.5, 3 inches of wheel gap right here between the inside of the fender and the tire. Lower them about a couple of inches on all the corners, and they look sick. Like, I didn't like the look of the NC Miata until I saw one that was lowered. I have a friend who has one lowered. He's got it on coilovers. And then he changed the wheels, and it looks amazing. I might do a YouTube like short or Insta reel on that. But yeah, just lower the car. Not only does it handle a lot better, but it just looks so much better when you do that, especially with the NC. I think the NC gains the most out of all the generations from lowering it, both in appearance and in handling.
And the looks haven't changed much, but there is a new front fascia and a new club trim that replaces the touring trim in the lineup and includes 17-inch gray alloy wheels, black side mirrors, and club badges. Inside, club trim adds a body-colored dash panel and red stitching throughout the cabin. Government fuel economy ratings come in at 21 city, 28 highway, and 24 combined. We topped all of those numbers, even with some back road blasting, netting a great average of 28.6 miles per gallon of premium. Cloth top-down summer fun in a Miata is only $24,515 away. Club trim comes in at $27,500. A power retractable hardtop will add $1,760 more, and while it also adds a little quietness, you really don't need it. We say buy the cheapest one you can find, drop the top, and hit the road. If we made a list of the most enjoyable cars that we've driven in our generation on the air, the Mazda Miata would be a serious contender for the top spot. And our time spent with the 2013 Mazda MX-5 Miata just reinforces that. Let's just hope that continues as the MX-5 zooms its way into the future.
Oh, it definitely did. Okay. Now let's look at what the market is like for the NC Miata. I have a few websites pulled up, but we'll do Facebook Marketplace first because that's where a lot of people are gonna look first. So I'm adjusting my settings here. Okay, so I've got Facebook Marketplace pulled up. One thing I want to point out about Facebook Marketplace is that, at least in the United States, because of the name recognition of Miata versus MX-5, if you go in here in your search results and you type in Miata, and we're looking within 100 miles. I just picked a different market than last time. We're looking within 100 miles of Atlanta, Georgia. Since I was recently there and I just wanted to look at the market. If you type in Miata and then do a search result, I think this is what Miata yields. Largely what you're going to get are NAs and NBs because almost all of them are going to be under 10 grand. And if you're under 10 grand and you have an older car, this is really what you're going to be looking at here. So, I mean, this isn't, it's very hard to find NCs with this kind of search result. You may find one or two, but as you can see here, it's largely NAs and NBs. And I thought about looking at a few of these while I was back east during my winter break, but I never pulled the trigger. I wanted to save my money, so I like this one, Merca. This is not an NA video, so I just thought that was neat. Okay, but as I was saying, if you type in MX-5 instead of Miata here in the search bar, let me try this again. You'll largely get the same results. You are more likely to get a few NCs, but the way you find NC Miatas on Facebook is you actually have to type NC Miata. Excuse me. Now you have NCs that are showing up and a few NBs and NAs, but you have to filter through. But these cars here, like this one, and well, that's an ND, and this one don't show up unless you specifically mention NC Miata. So let's look at a few of these. With NCs, you're going to be paying anywhere from, I'd say 7 to 8 grand is the floor. The ceiling for Facebook Marketplace realistically is going to be 13, 14. These cars are now about, the oldest NC Miatas are now like 20 years old, and the youngest ones are 10. So they're in that age range and price range where enthusiasts are now looking for a deal and they're picking them up. And the enthusiast community, the track community within the Miata community is migrating from the NA and the NB, because largely all of them have been tracked and trashed, and they're migrating to the NC because the NC is the best bargain of all the Miatas right now. You pay a little bit more than you do for an NB. You pay about as much as you would for a clean NA, but NCs are still depreciating because they haven't hit that 25, 30-year mark where they're in classic status. So there are a lot of good and bad examples that are on the road that are listed on Marketplace here. But let's look at a few of them here. This is a 2006, so it's going to be an NC1. Now, a lot more of the NCs that you see on Marketplace are going to be automatic. I don't know if this one is. I'll have to look through. But the automatic NCs and NDs, they're not garbage like the NA and the NB automatics are, where the transmissions will fail after 50 or 100,000 miles. These are actually good automatic transmissions. Not that you should get a Miata in an automatic transmission unless you can't drive, you physically can't drive a manual, but the manual's where it's at. But the automatics, don't rag on them too much. The automatics in the NC and the ND are actually good. They're reliable, in other words. This one's had some mods done. It's got a front lip here. These are aftermarket wheels. I don't remember seeing these as stock wheels on any generation of Miata. And this person, they list all the different mods with it. They did an engine swap. The 2.5 liter engine swap, I think it's out of a Ford Fusion. That is a very common mod or engine swap to do in an NC, because they call it the S2K killer. If you do a 2.5 liter engine swap, you get this to where it can outrun an S2K even in the higher rev ranges, supposedly. I don't know how true that is, but it's a very common engine mod to do on the NC. And supposedly, if you do that, you can pass emissions in states like California and anywhere else that can do it. Don't quote me on that, but that's what I heard from another video and a few other people I know. So this one's had a bunch of mods done to it. 96,000 miles on the car, 20,000 on the engine. All of this for only $8.5 grand. I tell people don't pay for other people's mods. But all in all, if this is a clean title and it checks out, this might be worth looking at, to be honest. This is not a bad deal. And it looks fairly clean on the inside. This is probably somebody who does these mods not to track it, but to do spirited mountain driving up in like the North Georgia mountains or up in the Gap in North Carolina and Tennessee. So, which is only 2 hours away from, well, maybe 3 hours away from Fairburn, because you have to go through all of Metro Atlanta just to get up there. But oh, one thing I want to point out, and I'll point out this out later on in a YouTube short Insta reel. The first mod that you want to do with anything in the engine bay is this comes in like a hard plastic or some kind of polymer from the factory, this coolant tank here, and it will fail after a while, especially if you drive hard. Replace it with the aluminum version. I forget who makes it. I forget, it's like Dayfab or Skunk 2 or somebody, but I think there are multiple companies. They make this as a metal coolant reservoir. So get this replaced. That's the first mod that you should do on an NC for reliability. But yeah, this isn't bad at all. I'd go check this one out if you're in the Atlanta area or within reasonable driving distance. Let's see. Let's look at this one. This is an NC2. I can tell, like I said, the diamond shaped fog lights, which I guess they weren't optioned in on this car. Maybe they weren't required. 84,000 miles, manual transmission. This is offered by a dealer, it looks like. I think this may be the same dealer that I looked at an NB at when I still lived in Georgia. This was years ago, like during COVID. This doesn't look bad. If it's a $599 dealer service fee added, negotiate that out. Don't ever pay for that bullshit. I'm serious. That's where dealers make all their money. I said no to to buying a new car recently because of all the fees that they're going to add. They eventually sold it anyway, but hey, that's more debt I don't need to get into. But always negotiate this kind of garbage out. Seriously, I'm not joking. These are aftermarket wheels. I don't know if they're reps. They're probably reps. They don't look bad on this silver car, though. And I like it. One thing I'll give this dealer credit for is listed 13 weeks ago. They probably want way too much. They take all the pictures that you need. Every angle, interior shots, engine bay, exterior. What the hell is going on there? That looks like somebody peeled off a sticker and didn't use isopropyl alcohol to get all that out. If you've watched my YouTube short on the proper way to apply stickers, I peeled a previous sticker off. Just rub it with IPA and then you'll get all that off. Unless those are actually scratches that are in this panel, then, well, there's nothing you can do about that other than replacing the panel. But if that's like residue from the sticker, that's how you get that off. Yeah, I don't know what those wheels are. You got a lock nut here, though. Oh, that's another thing I wanted to point out about the NC. NA, NB, and ND wheels are all 4x100 bolt pattern. NCs, you have a 5 lug. I think it's 5x114, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think it's like 5x100, but NCs use a different bolt pattern than NAs, NBs, and NDs. So that's something that you'll have to consider whenever you buy an NC if you care about wheels. And then we're back at the beginning. Yeah. So I mean, if it's still at the dealer, I definitely, with that it's been listed for 3 months, you could probably negotiate them down under 10 maybe. This is a no haggle cash sale price. Well, obviously they didn't sell it unless they updated the listing. So something like that. Like I said, I wouldn't pay more than 10 grand for an NC, even if it was well sorted. But you can get a good NC for under 10 grand. Let's just say that. I would look at this one, but I think this one's a better example to look at. This one is a 2013, so it's an NC3. And like I was saying earlier, the main difference between the NC2 and NC3 as far as the cosmetics go, or the fog lights here, they're squared off instead of diamond shaped. So you have a reflector here with the NC3. It looks like these were smoked, the headlight covers. I do like the grille on the NC3 a little bit better than the NC2. That's an aftermarket hood. This is the club variant, so it's got some suspension goodies and other things. And this has been on the market for 6 weeks. I wonder if it's because it has too many mods that people don't want. Oh, that's why. It's an automatic. Like I said, the automatic NCs aren't bad, but most people want a manual, so it's got the wrong transmission for this price. That's the problem. That's the problem with it. And I don't know what this screen is. Like I don't like it when screens stick out aftermarket like that. You can get a full double din for the NC and do it that way. If you want an automatic Miata, this isn't bad, assuming it has a clean title. Oh, okay, it's rebuilt. So it's a rebuilt title, it's got mods, and it's an automatic. That's why he can't get this kind of money for it. Really, this is $7,500, if that. I mean, especially with a rebuilt title, probably less than that. If it had a clean title, he'd have an easier time selling it, I think. Let me see if I can find another NC3. Oh, yeah, I want to look at this one, by the way. This color, if it is what I think it is, the driving video. This color is called Winning Blue, and it was popular on the RX-8, but they offered it on the Miata for the very first model year of the NC. 2006 is the only year you could get the light blue option on an NC, and it looks great. I like light blue, but to be consistent with my NA, I'm gonna get if I get an NC, I'm gonna get a dark blue, which is Stormy Blue Mica. And I want a power retractable hardtop. You couldn't option that in 2006, so that's a hint. If you see a Winning Blue NC and it has a power retractable hardtop, it wasn't Winning Blue from the factory. Somebody resprayed it. This one has an automatic, unless I can't see the inside of it. A lot of people on Facebook Marketplace, they don't bother changing the transmission on the listing, even if it is a manual. So you actually have to ask them a lot of times and physically inspect. If this has a clean title and it's actually a manual instead of an automatic, I mean, this is not bad for an NC. You can't get running and driving NAs for this price anymore, $3,500, unless they have 200,000 miles. So honestly, this is not bad. If it all checks out, I mean, go get it. That's what I would say, or at least go look at it. All right, let's look at AutoTempest. I may get around to bring a trailer and cars and bids, but AutoTempest is like an all-you-can-eat search site for any car that you want, because they check all the different sites like Auto Trader, AutoNation, all these others, Car Gurus, all at once, including I think they check Facebook Marketplace. They check private listing sites as well, but it's a consolidated search engine for all car listings in your geographic region. So here we have used cars, because all NC Miatas are used. So I'm going to click Mazda, and go to MX-5 Miata, and then let's look in the same marketplace of Georgia. So let's pick a zip code. I think 30321 is a zip code in the Atlanta area. And within 100 miles, I think that's reasonable. And let's do a search. And then here you can add more detail, because we were looking for the NC, like I said, 2006, 2015. And let's just look at manuals only, since we can option that. And then let's do a search. So here's what you're looking at, even from a lot of dealers. You can get a good one, and most of the ones from dealers are going to be clean titles, not rebuilt. But please double check if you do that. But you can see like 08, 06, 06 NC1s for, if you can get them, if you don't mind having 100,000 miles on a vehicle, and that's not low mileage, but I always disagree with people who consider 100,000 miles to be high mileage. I don't think so. You still got a lot of life left in the car as long as it was properly, maintained. This is a good price. You're going to be paying about 8-9 grand, maybe 10 for a well-sorted NC1. This is an NC3 for 15. The NC3s, especially if they're under 100,000, those are going to be the ones that will be closer to like 12, 13. I think this is, and also if it's a rebuilt or salvage, it's gonna be branded. They'll say it on here, I think. This one's not bad for 2014. And you can look through this list. I'm not going to go into every single detail, because a lot of these listings, if you go to like, these are listings from Carvana, cars.com, you know what to expect when you click any one of these links. So yeah, so really anywhere between, depending on the mileage and the trim, anywhere, the sweet spot for an NC, if you don't mind paying over 10 grand, get something anywhere between 8 and I'd say 12 and 13. as far as what a good deal is. And since we have time, let's look at BAT. Let's look at Bring a Trailer. Okay, and then the NC. NCs are a little bit new, so they're not going to be as many of them. And a lot of the ones that they sell on Bring a Trailer, by the way, aren't representative of the market. They usually have mods, or they have engine swaps, or they're special editions. So right now, if you look at the average here, is around 15 grand for whatever, that's the median price for those listed on BAT. And a lot of these do sell 7,000 for, that one probably has high mileage. Not really. This one has 69,000, manual transmission. Whoever got this one, especially since it's a hardtop, I think whoever got this one, they got a good deal. This one has only 7,000 miles and sold for 17, but this one has 37 and managed to sell for 18. I know it's a hardtop. If this color combo suits your fancy, you know, great. I think this is an automatic. What does it say up here? No, it's a manual. I must be thinking that's an automatic shifter. Now that I think about it, yeah, that's a manual. That is a manual. Okay. And why did this one sell for so much for being such low mileage? That's insane, and it's an automatic. I guess they wanted a museum piece or something. To me, having ultra low miles is actually less desirable than having like a moderate amount of miles, like between 50 and 100,000, because that means the car hasn't been driven. And we don't know if anything's going to go wrong with it. If you buy a car between 50 and 100,000 miles, chances are anything catastrophic that would have happened because of a factory defect or something like that would have already happened. So let's look at Duggan bids. There are only two right now that are listed, a Mazda Speed and an ND. So, and then if you look back at the search results, I don't see many NCs. There's one here, and it was bid to 10 grand. Another one here was sold for 16.25. So really good examples. If you want to pay Bring a Trailer prices, you're looking at 15 to 17. But honestly, I think you're paying too much at that point. I think really you can get away with paying 8 to 10 on an NC. If you want to pay a couple grand more for something that's well sorted out and is a hardtop, then I'd go no higher than 12, maybe 13. NCs go for about the same prices as really good NAs, and they're depreciating assets still. They're not, if you want to even call them assets, they're depreciating in value. So NBs have largely hit the bottom. NCs are still depreciating a little, but not much. You can get a good deal. NAs are just going to continue going up, in my opinion. So, but I think that will do it for this video. I might have some additions to this video about tips to watch out for when you're looking for an NC, as far as like maintenance goes and any rust spots or any water leaks that can happen. I have a friend who owns an NC, so I may do a short video on that, or a YouTube short or something later on as kind of like an addition to that. But that's largely all you need to know. NCs don't have a lot of the same issues that you really have to look out for yet on NAs and NBs. So what you see is largely what you get if you go out into the marketplace for an NC. And like I said, NCs are the best value for like all the Miatas at the moment. Like I said, you can get a well sorted one for 8 to 12 grand. I think that's going to get you a good car. You won't have any of the really old car issues that you will have with the NA and the NB, where you have to look more carefully, prepare for more maintenance, etc. So the NC is the best bargain for the Miata, and it's the one. If one additional point, if you are really big, whether you're wide or whether you're actually tall, chances are if you barely cannot fit into an ND or an A or NB, you might be able to fit into an NC. There are a lot of people out there. There's a big subset of people. The NC Miata is the only generation they can fit into. So if your head is, for instance, like hitting the roof on an NA or the NB, but you don't have to like bend your head down that much, but it is uncomfortable, try getting in an NC. You might actually have some clearance up here. So that's another thing I'll point out. So that will conclude my NC buyer's guide video. I know I've ranted on for too long. I know I probably ranted at least an hour, but thanks for sticking with me all the way through this. And until next time, I'll have more content. I wasn't able to get much content during my break because I was going to go up and drive in the mountains, but it was raining a lot of the time, and it was cold, and it got down to like 10-15 degrees. So there was chances of like slick spots and ice. So it wasn't really a good idea to go up there. So I'll wait till the warmer months and maybe drive back. You'll see me at Miatas at the Gap this year. So, but other than that, look for a few more videos over the next, a few days. But until next time, see you later, and I hope you use the advice that I gave you in this video. I should have my ND buyer's guide probably within the next few weeks, and I'll have a lot of content ready to go for that because, like I said, the ND, I know a lot about the current generation of Miata, just like I do the NA. The NB and the NC I'm not as well versed in, but hopefully the information I provided in this video is useful to you. So with that, thanks for watching and have a great day.